The section of this course that is talking about planning for facilitation. I think that planning for facilitation is so important because in some ways, the role of the teacher is more complex in a Harkness discussion. In some ways, if you are in a Socratic seminar, for example, your role is a little bit more clear-cut. You show up with the questions, you drive the discussion, you try to include students as much as possible, but you have your hands on the reins. In Harkness, you are sharing the reins with all of the students. And that means that your role is a little bit less clear. So hopefully what you can get from this section is clarity and is some sense of concrete steps, concrete ideas amidst that nebulousness. So this is the first time in this chapter where we're going to delve into this document called the facilitation packet. And in this section, we're just going to talk about the first few pages that are going to outline the moves. These are the moves that are most commonly used at CVU. Are these all of the moves? No, of course not. To a certain extent, I'm sure there are moves that we haven't even thought of. And that's one of the joys of you being here, is that you might come up with new moves that you can share with the Harkness practitioners at our school and really help us improve our practice. So let's dive in. This is the beginning of this packet that I made to hopefully be a one-stop shop for anyone who is learning to facilitate, including students. So the first thing that we have are, actually, you know what? I'm going to come back to this first page. Let's start here on the second page. So this is a sheet that a man named Adam Sargent created. Adam is a longtime social studies teacher at Harwood Union High School in Duxbury. And Harkness is something that's been a part of Harwood's culture since I started learning Harkness in 2017. And Adam rightly realized that there were certain things that he was doing over and over again as a facilitator. And so he codified them in this prep sheet. And most of us who are practicing Harkness use Adam's sheet as a tool for our own preparation. So most of the time when I'm going to have a Harkness discussion, I will go to this sheet and I will fill one out for myself and have it in front of me as I'm facilitating. So the building blocks of facilitation, I would say, are all comprised here. First, more often than not, I suspect you're going to have a driving question. You want to note that down here. Then I think you want to note down what is your icebreaker. This is not necessarily something that is related to content. This is just a way that you're going to get the kids to just warm up their instrument. Just get them talking. I like to do whips, which means just everyone goes around and says something in order. I like to do a whip of what people had for breakfast. What's the last song they sang out loud? What's the last great movie or TV show they saw? Just something that everyone has easy access to and helps sort of get them warmed up just a little bit. And then you have your opener. Your opener is the way that you're going to get the students engaged in the content. And there's a bunch of specific ways that you could do that. Then there's a section where you need to anticipate what teacher moves you might need. I'm going to get into the most common teacher moves that we use, but I want you to be thinking about when you're thinking about what teacher moves might I need, you need to be anticipating what dynamics you might need to address. The most common that you'll get into later on in this chapter, how do you deal with the small number of students who are talking way more than everyone else? How do you deal with the students who are not speaking at all? How do you deal with a conversation that seems like it's moving really fast? Kids are bouncing from idea to idea, from question to question, without ever going into any depth, and also moving so fast that kids who process slowly can't get in. What do you do if the discussion is getting off track? If a student is bringing the discussion somewhere that you don't want it to go? What do you do if someone says or does something harmful? That last one, I think, is probably everyone's biggest fear. I will tell you that in my experience, it's rare, but it does happen, and we're going to talk in this chapter about some ways to address it. Then, and this is phrased in such a way that it makes it a little bit biased towards humanities teachers, but what key passages are really important for you to bring up with students? So you want to note down whether it is text or it is an aspect of a math problem or an aspect of a science problem. What is the content that's really important to you that students cover? Now, in a perfect world, the students will get there themselves. But as I said earlier, we don't live in a perfect world. So you want to know right away what's important to bring up. You may even want to add in timestamps. If 10 minutes in the students haven't arrived there, you note for yourself that you need to bring them there. Next, what are the questions that are really important for the students to be asking the group? Again, in a perfect world, the students will have this on their prep sheet. They will ask the questions themselves. We don't live in a perfect world, so you need to make sure, especially in the early going of your class when students might not trust each other and maybe they don't have the practice with asking good questions that they will have later on, you need to make sure that you know what questions you want them to ask. But bear in mind, it is not your conversation, it's their conversation. So be sparing. Only include the most essential things that they need to discuss and jump in if you need to. Closing. How are you going to close it? You look up, you see that there's 5 minutes left. In a perfect world, you don't want to just say, well, that's time, everybody. Thank you. How are you going to steer them back into the harbor? Reflection. There are at least two videos in this whole course that discuss reflection, and one that goes in depth and shows you a bunch of different reflections. Reflection is a cornerstone part of Harkness practice. So what reflection will you use? Do you have it at the ready? What is the significance of the discussion? So how does it fit into your unit? Does it touch on one of your essential questions? Is it building towards a particular assessment that you have? And lastly, assessment. There is a whole chapter in this course about assessment. It is worth you thinking about how are you going to assess. When I go to fill out this sheet, I use this blank version right here. And I will fill it out digitally, or I'll print it and fill it out by hand if I don't have too much that I want to add. But every time I have this sheet in front of me, and it's been enormously helpful. So to get into the nitty-gritty, here are some teacher moves. Openers, these are all openers that I have used. They are in pretty wide use at CVU, and they work. They just work. You could take them tomorrow, and they work. Controlling the dynamics. So in all of the dynamic behavior scenarios that I described earlier in this video, many of these will get you what you want. These are the real heavy hitters that get a lot of play. If things are going too fast, if things are off track, if a small number of students are speaking, a think and write, a whip, a turn and talk. These three are these are the workhorses of Harkness facilitation. You can achieve a lot with these, and you can stack them in a way that suits your purposes. So maybe if the discussion is moving really fast and 3 students are dominating it, you stop, you have one of your pre-prepared questions. You say, everybody, I'd like us to think about this. And you ask your question and you say, I'd like us to do a 2-minute think and write on our prep sheet. And then you transition into a whip afterwards, or you transition into a turn and talk. Those 3 are really, really useful. And despite the fact that they do demonstrate a certain amount of teacher control. Even my most skilled Harkness practitioners, my most skilled Harkness students, they say that they appreciate these used appropriately to help everyone feel as if they can enter the conversation. I think that the idea that there are some students, when you have students who are speaking more than others, I personally don't like to name students. Hey, you, Kelly and Jim, you're speaking too much, or you're speaking more than everyone else. I'd like you to pull back. That feels like it is a little bit of a reprimand. It's just not my style. So one of the things I do like to do, and it may seem passive aggressive to some, and if you don't want to do it, don't go with your style. I like to just say to the group, and in general, I think when facilitating, that just being transparent is a useful tool more often than not. I like to just say to the group, it's clear to me that there are some of you who have shared much more than others. If that's you, I'd like you to take a step back, maybe wait until 3 or 4 other people share before you share. And I'd like, for the folks who haven't shared, do you have any thoughts about what we're saying? Would you like to share something right now? Open the door for those folks and also name the dynamics. I think that's okay. Closers. All of these are great. I'm going to let you dive into them. I don't need to go into these in depth just yet. So this is my coverage of just the real heavy hitters for teacher moves at CVU.